Welcome back to In Pursuit of Magic, where we explore the things that inspire us, connect us, and the magic we find along the way. I'm Matthew Medina, and today's very special guest is a very talented Detroit native who's been trailblazing as a bassist, vocalist, multi instrumentalist, and as the first African American woman to earn a bachelor's degree in music composition from Michigan State University. She also became the first student at Michigan State to receive simultaneous degrees in music composition and jazz studies. In 2021, was named one of the two recipients of the inaugural Jazz Leader Fellowship at the Brooklyn Conservatory of Music. And in 2024, was named one of three inaugural New York Community Trust Van Leer Fellowship recipients with the American Composers Orchestra. She also teaches private music lessons on top of all that and is currently bass chair for Titanic on Broadway. I'm very excited to welcome Jordyn Davis. Jordyn, thank you for being on. Just hearing your story from what I was reading, it's so impressive. So I'm just so honored to have you on and just talk about your journey.
Yes, thank you so much, Matthew, for having me. Like that was a truly unique experience, like hearing you read that back and then also just like seeing all the beautiful Titanic memorabilia you have behind you. I was like, oh my God, my life is like flashing before my eyes.
Well, it's amazing, just I think when you hear all the stuff you've done, like sit back to you on a list because it's so easy to not think about it that way because it's such a journey and there's so many in between moments that don't feel so great and it's a lot of hard work.
Absolutely.
So it's amazing to just hear that back and see like what you've accomplished and what you're continuing to accomplish because you're also still so young. So there's like so much ahead of you that to still accomplish, which is incredible. And it makes me curious about your first inspirations. You're originally from Detroit and got into music. And so what inspired you to pursue music and pick up so many instruments?
Yeah, so I grew up dancing competitively. And so, like, my mom also went to school for performing arts and, like, really made sure to, like, enrich my childhood with, like, exposure to musical theater and dance and performance. So, like, I was a natural and am a natural performer, but am still very much so an introvert. And I couldn't quite find my people, like, in dance. Like, I loved dancing and I loved performing and having a lot of different experiences. But when it came to like the other dancers, like I was like, I don't really fit in here. And same thing kind of happened in a lot of different places. So I eventually like found my place in music after kind of being told, like, no, don't do this, don't do this. But I just didn't really understand that because for me, like, I grew up as a military brat, so I spent a lot of time traveling back and forth between my parents' homes and then moving cities a lot of the time, moving states, moving across the country, and just, traveling a lot, like, for a young person. Um, and I think for me, music was the one consistent thing I had in my life. My little CD player. I remember being probably like 6 or 7 and the 3LW CD came out and I literally burned a hole in it. I listened to it so much in the back of my grandparents' car. And, really felt like when I was riding around or when I was listening to music, like it was creating like this whole other world for me to escape into. And so I just craved that expression, but also craved that escape and that safety. I love telling people the story about how I like started playing bass because it really was like one of those like hilarious kind of like cartoon moments where it's like character like decide what you want to do, like do you want this, and it's like no, that's not it. Do you like this? No, that's not it. And I remember my sixth grade orchestra teacher, first day of class, she's like, okay, everybody gets an instrument. Everybody's like, violin. Of course, there's not enough violins for 47 kids.
Of course.
So everybody who doesn't get a violin gets a viola. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. It's really small. Good for y'all. What else you got? And then the cellos came out and I was like, okay, like that seems pretty cool, but it's still not it. Like I'm still not feeling the fire. And so everybody gets their instruments, everybody's trying to figure it out. And I'm just like the only one, like, okay, so is there anything else? Because I really don't want to join band. Like, please, I don't know if there's anything else, but I really hope there's something else. And she's like, well, I do have this. And she like opens the door and it was literally like a kind of moment for me. So at 11, I was like, oh, finally, like I have a tangible way to like be connected to the music. And I just have never wanted to let it go ever since.
That's incredible. Just the way you're talking about music too from such an early age and escaping to this other world. I don't play any instruments and yet I relate to that feeling to the point where there's times I'll be leaving my house in the morning for work. And if I forget my headphones, I have to go back and get them. Like, I can't go a day without listening to music. Like, it's just what feeds something in me. And so to see that that led you to this moment where you also just felt a calling to something specific. Like, you kind of knew what wasn't you and what wasn't going to feed your soul, which is a beautiful thing. And so once you had
Absolutely.
that moment, like, and how is it getting into like bass and learning how to play and just kind of growing from there?
Yes, I mean, I was a middle schooler, your average middle schooler, high school kid who was just like, I don't want to practice. I loved music. I loved playing in the orchestra. I love bass, but like, oh my God, like nobody likes to practice. I mean, to this day, like I love regiments and routines, but I don't really I don't like to put the practice label on it because in my mind it thinks it's something else. So we work around that with the reverse psychology. But, I almost actually stopped playing bass in high school because I was the only bass player in middle school. Then I got to high school and they still had no other bass players. And I was like, okay, so I don't have anybody to talk to, I don't have anybody to play with. And there's no attention being given to me on this instrument. I don't have like a way to access private lessons. Or nor did I know that was even a thing because nobody in my family plays an instrument, could write a song, could sing it to. I mean, like they could probably sing it to, and I don't want to do that to them. But like they're just really not musicians and really not artists. So I just did not have the exposure or the vocabulary or the understanding of like what it is you do, you know, as a musician. So, yeah, I think that I'm like losing my train of thought if I'm being completely honest.
Well, it's just hearing your journey and that process for you, it's amazing that you did end up sticking with it. And, you know,
Oh, yes. So what I was saying is like, thank you. What I was saying is like I almost quit. Like I almost quit playing bass because I wanted to take home ec. Right. I was like, all the girlies are making brownies in the middle of the day. Like, I want to go do that. And my mom was like, absolutely not. I don't know what it is you're doing, but you're going to stick with this. And she drove me to the practices and has all of the videos and the pictures of the orchestra concerts on her iPad. And like, my mom is actually, and I have to say this because my mom is absolutely one of my hugest supporters. Like, she might not understand everything that I've decided to do. And more recently, she's kind of like coming around to it, is understanding and is like using the vernacular and understands the culture of things and like what it is that I do to some extent now, like 10 years in the professional world. And she actually was one of the first people who encouraged me to start playing jazz. And I was like, no, absolutely not. I don't want to do that. Like I'm serious about this classical music. I'm going to play classical music on the bass and that's going to be that. Whatever with the jazz. And I would not be the artist, the woman, the musician, the person I am now without, my experience in jazz studies and my experience growing and developing as a musician, as an artist in Detroit on the jazz scene with, my mentors and peers. Always listen to your mom is the moral of the story.
it's amazing you share that too, because I was gonna ask, like, what was your inspiration in blending so many different genres and getting into that? And I could see that that's where it started, which is really incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always like if I wasn't like I always had interest in a lot of different things and a lot of unique tastes in music. I remember being like in middle school and my older brother would play like Incubus for me and then I started getting into like alternative rock and like getting into Coldplay and I spent actually a lot of my formative years in like high school reviewing albums on YouTube because I didn't have the people around me who cared. Like I was in marching band and a part of like the music programs at my school, but like I was still a niche girl. So it was still like this is back when Unknown Mortal Orchestra was like this little indie band, releasing MP3 albums on music blogs, just the beginnings of, internet music culture. And it was like a really fascinating thing for me too. And it was like my outlet since my community was like, girl, we don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it's amazing what it led to now because it's for you to do it now as a career and to have your hand in so many things. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I'm thinking about that time too, where there wasn't so much focus, there wasn't so many outlets for people to talk about music and share things. So yeah, those early days of like album reviews were like such a thing.
Yeah, I remember I mean, like, he's still the guy for internet album reviews, Anthony Fantano. Like, if he were to ever see this and potentially remember me, probably not. But I used to have this channel called Flippin' the Birdie, and it was like him, and then there was this other guy, I can't remember his last name, but his first name was Austin, and they were like very huge supporters of mine, but also like people that I really admired. So it was just like things at that time that really helped boost my confidence in like exploring music and wanting to learn more about it. And like, I mean, my vinyl collection is insane. And that started, when I was reviewing those albums on YouTube.
And, it goes to show also having that kind of support and mentorship, whether it was through there or with your mom and others, like how important that is and vital. And it seems like it helped in the moments where you needed it most to like take another step forward and getting you to where you are today. So it's kind of just incredible to hear that too. And, you know, it's a mix of having that mentorship, but then also you having the courage to like take that step and put in the work and put yourself out there, which I think is equally important.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying that because that is something that I don't talk about a lot in these interviews. It's just like, oh yeah, like we did all these things and then we auditioned and we made it in and aha. But like I actually was rejected from music school twice before I auditioned as a jazz studies major. So the first time I auditioned on classical bass, having taken no lessons. And I was like, yeah, like I got it. I love this. They love me. I'm passionate. Somebody's gonna teach me how to do this. Then I tried to get into music school as a vocalist. And I was like, well, okay, I don't have time to be the best bass player in the world. So I have a voice that can do things. But I'm a bass player. I could not have gone to school as a vocalist. So it was actually because I was studying composition and geology and environmental environmental engineering all at the same time, like during my first 3 years of my undergrad. And the composer I was studying with, who was on faculty, his name is Mark Sullivan, he introduced me to the director of jazz studies at Michigan State, Rodney Whitaker. And I remember meeting Rodney and telling him like all my dreams, like, I want to score films, like I want to be a part of like making really impactful music and being a part of community and like be behind the scenes. Like I don't need to be the center of attention, but like I really just like want to learn how to speak the language and like build worlds. And he's like, cool. Like, do you have any interest in auditioning for the jazz studies program? And I was like, "No, I don't know anything about jazz. Like, I couldn't name a jazz musician to you right now confidently." And he was like, "Cool. So you're gonna start taking lessons with my graduate assistant, and we're gonna have you audition for the jazz studies program at the top of next semester. It's just gonna happen. Based on everything you just told me, you just need to trust me." And, you know, that was the day I feel like my entire life changed because it was finally the door open for me to begin on a path, like, to learn all the things I needed to learn to make my dreams come true and to be able to be a part of this world that I just had no other way into without, like, these people taking a chance on me and seeing my passion and seeing the potential in a individual like me. So, absolutely, community and mentorship are at the core of my experience, but like at the core of my values as well. Anybody I talk to, any, young emerging artists, folks who want to be sidemen or just want to do anything in music, I'm like, you just need to find one person who believes in you and who knows a lot of things about what you want to know. And then you need to ask them every question in the world. And that is kind of how I have made it here, except I didn't just pick one person. I picked many, many people over time.
Which is so important too. I was just talking to Alex Mack the other day, and who's also on Titanic, and he was saying how one of his biggest lessons was how great it is to get into something and not know anything about it and the opportunities that creates. And then the other thing is, like you said, meeting these people and being ready for when the opportunity comes, which isn't always easy, and sometimes it's being aware and talking to the right person and saying yes, which I think is the part that relies on you as the artist to say yes to things and kind of jump in, which could be very scary if you don't know much about it.
Absolutely. And, I was just talking to someone, a dear friend of mine who's also a percussionist. And well, she's a percussionist. I'm not a percussionist. She's also a musician, is what I was trying to say. And we were just kind of talking about how she was like, your confidence in your vision and your dreams and your goals gives me the confidence to do it myself. And I'm like, I love that because my confidence literally comes from a very delusional place in my gut, but it is so reliable, it is so trustworthy that I just live my life walking in faith and trusting in that intuition 100%. I very famously spent my entire time in college telling everybody that I wanted to be the first African American woman to win an Oscar for Best Original Score. And that is still very true. But as someone who did not even know how to walk a bass line, like, who are you to say that that's what you want to do? You know? And I think I've just always moved that way. Like, I very much so also identify as an old soul. So I probably have lived several lives before this, and I soak up all the wisdom and the divine protection and guidance and energy, and all of those things are very important to me. And my faith is very important to me, and just staying grounded and staying aligned with what is going to keep me happy and healthy and at peace.
Absolutely. And I think like what you said about delusion is such an important thing too. I speak to so many artists who say like you need a healthy amount of delusion in any industry, but especially in a creative industry. And what that really translates into is having faith in yourself. And you know, I know for me I have faith in God, but then there's also the faith in myself. And I know a lot of artists struggle with that and there's ups and downs. Like you said, there's not always talked about the hardships and the obstacles and the no's and the things that don't work out. We always see the successes that are posted, and there's so many in between
Absolutely.
moments. But that illusion is helpful, and I think sometimes it takes those little moments too of meeting someone who says the right thing. I shared on my episode with Melissa that a couple years back, she's the one who told me that I deserve to be among the people that I admire. And it took me a while to start believing that. And
Mm,
I don't think if I did, I wouldn't have started this podcast, which is such a shame because I love meeting people like you and getting inspired and hearing your stories and getting to talk about your stories because I think it's so important to other people who are chasing something and love stuff and are passionate to know that they're not alone, A. And as personal and lonely that journey could feel, there's other people also going through it. And they should hear the ups and downs and the twists and turns and the different ways to get to the same place and how important that is.
absolutely. And the world 100% needs people like you who find it meaningful to make connections with folks and to hear their stories and to document them, because archivists don't really exist as a dream job, or like really as a job or a role for many people outside of individual projects or individual documentation. So it's like, kudos to you 100%, because we also need it documented that we're talking about these things. And like, have like a I don't have a complicated relationship with social media, but I'm not the type of artist who can, chunk out content 3 times a week or at all. Like, I really am still kind of like trying to find what's going to be the most organic and natural way for me to engage with people. And right now that's just like sharing little tidbits of my life. But what I've been loving about it recently is it's been documenting this shift that's happening in our culture, in Broadway culture. And the shift is happening at least by continuing to have the conversation out loud, but even louder, because now we have had a global superstar at the epicenter of the conversation this past spring, with Meg the Stallion, really embracing her humanity and saying, "Hey, I need to take a night off. And also, I know I agreed to do this, but my life is happening right now. And my life is more important than this show. The show is beautiful. It supports people's lives. It's community, absolutely. But I'm a person and my personhood comes first." And there's so many other artists that I've been seeing talk about how their bank accounts have been in the negative when they're winning all of these big awards. And like, I it makes me so proud to see our community just embracing talking up and speaking up more about these issues, and being honest about the realities of what it's like to work inside this industry, because it has very, very, very great marketing, just like the city of New York. Everybody wants to do it, everybody wants to be there, but like, what they don't tell you is like what it's really like inside. How do you stay inside, and how do you stay yourself inside too? So I just have been also super grateful for that, because this past Well, okay, so like this time last year, I had a 3-year composition fellowship at the Kennedy Center. And I think we signed to start the project May of 2024. So we had just barely finished the first year before there was obvious, I don't even, you can't even call it administration changes when the Kennedy Center was taken over.
Yeah.
Everybody who was a part of anything related to my fellowship was essentially forced out of the organization. And obviously, like, we were not paid, we were not guaranteed any new places for our works to be commissioned or performed or any of that sort of thing because we were supposed to be writing. It was a collaboration with the National Symphony Orchestra. So the first year we were supposed to write a chamber piece, the second year was an orchestra piece, and the third year was an opera if he chose it to be. And we didn't even get to that part of the process. We barely got to premiere the chamber works because of the ambush that was happening. And for me, that was really, really tough and challenging because it was like the biggest opportunity I had received in my life. Like both of my parents, like that fall came to the Kennedy Center to see me perform. And I think that for them was also just like a huge like wake up, like, oh, like she's really doing this thing. So like I value like the time and the energy spent and the acceptance that I was given, and the visibility through that opportunity, but it just as quickly as it came, because it was something that I didn't apply for. They reached out to me like, we want to offer you this opportunity. So I was feeling like, oh my goodness, okay, there is a place for me. There's a place for me in this industry, or I can do this as a career. So to start that and then have it abruptly just kind of ripped away, and I really had to start over. Like I had to go home, I had to regroup, I had to find a way to get back on my feet. And my parents are like, we just saw you perform at the Kennedy Center. We're so confused. We don't know what to do. You get a job at a bank? Do you get a job at a grocery store? Like, what do you do? And I'm like, you guys, like, this is just what it is. Like, I'm shocked, I'm hurt, but also like, if my mentors have taught me anything, is like, this is normal. If this is happening, like, it's because you're on the right track. And I'm so grateful a year out. I'm so grateful that opportunity happened because it gave me a chance to sit with myself, a chance to reconnect with my family. I feel closer than ever in my entire life to my family. And that is a huge, huge joy and a huge blessing that I didn't think that I would ever really have because I know how challenging maintaining any type of relationship can be in adult life, but to have a close relationship with my grandparents and both of my parents and my younger sisters, like, is such a tremendous gift and nothing will replace that. So I cherish that, over the dream at this point because the dream is a lie. Like we are artists and we'll do the thing and we'll have our paths and we'll make our impact, but it's like you don't just make it. Like it is a journey. It's going to be hard and it's going to be dry, but also the oasis will arrive again because when I got the call to do Titanic, I was actually working on some projects that were not particularly fulfilling. And I was doing what I had to do, like really like applying for professor jobs because I was also working through this like imposter syndrome thing. Like, am I somebody who has something to teach folks? Like, do people look at me as a respected mentor, somebody who has something to share and learn? And I fully believe that now after a lot of that time spent in self reflection and growth. But, the shift was unstable. And I never imagined that, like, the next thing was going to be a Broadway chair. I always have been in the realm, have played with a lot of Broadway musicians, have done a lot of cabaret shows with Broadway stars across generations. And like, I'm active in the theater community and it's a tremendous blessing and I love it. And I love the theater folk. But I also understand the game. Like every season is different. Every show is different. Contractors are different. Not everything is just you apply and you get the job. Like it's very complex. So when I'm sitting here like waiting to hear back about this professor job and they're like, "Oh, like are you interested in like doing, playing some electric bass?" And I was like, "I play a lot of electric bass, Here's here's some things." And they're like, "Oh, okay, great. You'll be perfect." And I actually I had no idea like what I was signing up for because I obviously also didn't know what show it was until I was later confirmed. And then I learned what show it was and I was like, this is crazy for me because the first Broadway show I worked on was New York, New York. And I was a music assistant on that show. And that was a tremendous experience just because of the Broadway legacy in that room. Like in the rehearsal space, I've never experienced a rehearsal process like that. It was honestly just one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I would see the posters and stuff in the subway for Titanic. And I was like, what is this? What is this? I don't know. And like I am a child of the 90s where a lot of music was circulating, but also like we didn't have Siri, we didn't have Shazam. So I don't know what I'm hearing. I'm just enjoying it and I love it and I know what it is. So I'm like Celine Dion. I'm so confused. Who is Celine Dion? Okay, girl. Don't tell people you don't know who Celine Dion is. But I would see these posters and I was like, okay, like that's great. Like good for them. And then, getting the call and like, oh, it's Titanic. And I was like, I thought they did that. And so like, it's just like a very full circle kind of like things because they are also the team of that show has come from humble beginnings like myself to now be doing this amazing thing. And it is 100% divine aligned timing because we are all like every person that is a part of this show is I feel like in the same kind of place where we are rising from the ashes. We are overcoming the things that really held us back or held us down as artists or that people tried to hold against us as artists. And it just feels like exactly where I need to be and where I'm supposed to be, like regardless of my reputation, my stature, da 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 da. Like on a spiritual level, I feel a guaranteed purpose in the space. And that is validated every single time I walk in the door to play the show and speak to everybody in the building. Like I had to sit down the other day and just record myself just doing stream of consciousness with gratitude because I was just feeling so overwhelmed with support and joy from the conversations that I was having amongst the cast and the crew and the orchestra that day, just like, hey, trying to move and like trying to get myself back together after like such a hard year and like transitioning through this opportunity. And like this show has like really helped give me a fresh start and help get back on my feet, which is like so phenomenal and such a great opportunity. But also it's given me so much more than I even ever anticipated or asked for because like I said, the members of the orchestra, like we all play music, yes, but like I know them as people. And that's very rare. Like you don't get an opportunity always to like get to know the people that you're making music with. And especially since we're doing this 8 times a week, like it matters to me what's going on in Sylvia's life. Like it matters to me if Priscilla ate a sandwich before the show. It matters to me if Emil hit his knee on the way downstairs because he's got to go up and down those stairs to change the batteries for the microphones or like whatever it is. Like, and it matters to them if I'm not feeling good. So I say all of that to say it's like you can't give up on yourself, especially if you have this belief in yourself. And it's really hard to deny yourself that kind of joy and that kind of satisfaction, but also just like your connection to something so much higher and so much bigger than yourself. I have like completely just kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, my hands are up. I'm going wherever I'm told to go at this point. Like, I don't control anything around these parts, but when I go where I'm supposed to go, I know what the assignment is.
Yeah, it's a lot of trust and faith, and it seems like that's what's brought you to a place where you're finding so much joy, which makes me so happy to hear because it does seem like everyone that's part of the show is feeling something similar with their path and their journey. I think in any kind of industry, but especially in creative ones, there's always going to be those setbacks and obstacles and things that happen. And yet, I think with your story, there was just a whole other wrench and level of mess with the Kennedy Center and what's been going on. And so it's amazing to see your transition and your shift from there to where you are now and what that journey brought you and how it helped build a piece of yourself that I guess you found your confidence in a little more and your value and as a person and as a teacher also, which is incredible. And then to come to a show that's all about joy and happiness, I think is like the perfect timing also.
And being so stupid.
Yes, so
Oh my God.
overwhelmingly.
And being so stupid. Like that's the other part of it too. Is like things are so serious. Like, and I am a patron of the seriousness and logic and reason and all these things. But oh my goodness, like I love to be stupid. So to get called to do to get called to do what I do while everybody around me gets to be stupid and then I get to react to them being stupid. I couldn't have, like I said, I couldn't have dreamed something like this for myself. So, yeah.
Well, and it's obviously needed and wanted by so many people. I mean, with the Tony nominations happening, and it's amazing just see and the extension, that's another thing. So there's so
Yeah.
much going on, and it has so much energy and chaotic comedic kind of core to it. And so for you, how does performing music for this show differ from your experience with other like genres like jazz and classical or theater work? And are there any specific moments or challenges that you really, really enjoy?
Yes. Oh my god, that's such a great question because I literally I'm so right now I'm like training my subs since we got the extension, and just giving other folks an opportunity to experience this because as somebody who had no connections into the Broadway realm outside of, just being a member on the scene, and just continuing to work with people and getting to know people, like it makes a difference to me and it means something to me to be able to bring people who really want to be in this space who don't also have an in. And it's not like about just bringing people in, but it's like people who work really hard and are dedicated to the craft and like just we know how close knit these opportunities are and these communities are. So whatever way we can bring new folks in, I feel like it's a perfect opportunity. But this show is like, if I were to compare it, if I could compare it, it is more like a jazz, like if I'm doing like a one off kind of jazz gig where we're playing tunes and, making up arrangements on the spot. Because the timing is different every single night. And we're kind of just having to react to the cast members and their timing. So I really love that because also like in a traditional musical, like it gets pretty locked in, the timing, the setting, and that sort of thing. But this is like some nights we might hold this for 25 seconds because somebody's breaking and somebody's laughing and the whole audience is cheering. And there's like there's something special about those unique moments happening every night. um, I tell everybody the hardest part about playing this show is not playing the bass at all. It's it's trying to play the bass while people are jumping up and down above you, running down the aisle, making stupid faces at you, cutting off hands, like while all this craziness is going on, but like you got to stay locked in because you are the beat, you are the bass. And also just like we don't have iPads on stage, which this is the first production I've done without an iPad, like a first musical theater production I've done without an iPad. So doing physical page turns for me required me to lean into my dancer bag because it's like there's choreography, there's timing. You have to know like exactly when you're going to do the thing so that you can get back to the base. So I definitely think it requires a particular skill set of just being able to go with the flow and trust. And I do that all day long. So it just seems like an ideal, like I'm an ideal kind of person to be in this position, which is why I'm here. And I'm grateful because it's also given me an opportunity to like continue sharpening these skills in new ways and just opening up my ears, but also utilizing my eyes a lot more because in the jazz world we don't have conductors and that sort of thing. And like if we do, it's just telling everybody that the section is ending and that we're gonna move on. So there's a lot of this or there's a lot of this. There's not anything else. There's no cueing or any of that. So I'm having to practice that a lot and I love it. It's great because it's also teaching me a lot about leadership and following and learning people's different conducting styles and also working on my own conducting because I also compose a lot of music and I have been straying away from conducting a lot of my works, but I'm like, well, nobody really knows it better than you do. So maybe you should, if you're going to record it or have it performed, like it wouldn't be a crazy thing to learn or to just figure out how to conduct it and experiment with that part of your artistry as well. So there's a lot of developing happening and also just a lot of fun. It's just, I really, there's no other experience in my life that I've had like playing this show, and I live for it. I'm grateful for every single show.
Well, that's the amazing part that I keep hearing about this show of, we talk a lot about the joy it brings to the audience and the energy in the room, but there's so much joy behind the scenes and everyone working on it. And it feels like it gives a lot of space, like you said, for learning, for trying new things, for fun challenges and just like enjoying yourself, which is the best thing in the world. And I can only imagine what opening night was like. What for you, what was it like both on the first preview night, but then on the big opening night?
First preview was scary because that was also like my well, I don't want to say it was scary. I'm not like one of those people who's like, "Oh, I have to take my beta blockers," or like, "I have stage fright." Like, I don't really do that. It's more of just like, am I feeling okay enough to be locked in to do this thing today? And our first preview, I was getting over a sinus infection, so I was like, "Okay, I hope we can hear through the in-ears tonight." And first preview was very different from opening night because also I'm still having an understanding of what our performance practices on a Broadway show. And I never subbed on a Broadway show. Like, obviously, I've done productions, but it's very different and the standards are different. And I'm under the assumption like you play a wrong note or you miss an entrance or you do anything wrong, you're out. So my first preview, I'm like, you cannot play a single wrong note. And I'm so like not that kind of person. Like I don't like if I play I love playing wrong notes when I'm playing my music or when I'm playing jazz or I'm, just messing around because it always is a gateway to something new and something that I didn't anticipate exploring. So for me, I'm like, I need those moments. I need those moments to recover. And I need those moments to like keep me on my toes as opposed to just like being so stressed and locked in and like trying to just play it 100% perfect. Cause I already don't live by a philosophy of expecting perfection. I just want to play better than the last time I did. Progress over perfection. So once I realized, like, actually through the preview process, because some of our music's changed, some of the cues changed, things got added, that sort of thing, I was actually really involved in being able to get more creative with my bass lines and, you know, play what I wanted to play as opposed to what was on the page. Nicholas is honestly one of my favorite people in the entire world. It's such a phenomenal experience getting to work with him. And as music supervisor, like, and this being his first Broadway experience, like, I think he's just handled it so tremendously and has led through this whole process with open arms and an open heart. You can tell that he really loves the show and he really loves the music and he has poured every ounce of himself into this show. And he just wants it to sound good and he wants it to feel good. And I'm like, I can do that for you. If you just allow me to be me and do what I need to do, I can do that for you. He's like, please just do that. That's the expectation. So it was also just like a relief in that part of the process, like being like, oh, okay, like I can put a little fill here, or I can change up this little lick here, or I can just put myself into this. Because also there was no bass on the off Broadway show. So there's not like a framework to be working from. Like left hand key bass, not the same. So we don't have to necessarily adhere to some of the same lines or techniques that would come like from a keys player. So I think it's just been so great to be able to show up and express myself in the book and between opening first preview and opening night, by opening night, like I was playing the lines the way I wanted to play them. I was playing, I was just showing up as myself behind the bass a lot more confidently. And, you know, just having to figure out in-ear adjustments and like all of these other sorts of things because our tech process is basically all the way through previews as well. So, there's not a lot of time to like fix a lot of the things that you can't control and you're just barreling through to make sure that at the bare minimum it feels good, it sounds good, and the job is getting done. And whatever you can add on and build from there is going to be the progress you make over the next 10,000 shows. So definitely that.
Well, I just love how all of that process kind of gives room for you to experiment and try new things and find your best self. And I heard of it. There was a moment maybe a couple of weeks ago where a sound effect didn't happen where Jack was supposed to scream when his hand comes off, and they improvised, and that made it funny. And
Exactly.
so I just love that, and
Exactly.
I think the same thing can happen with the music where it could be used for the show, and it's like unless you've seen the show like a million times, the audience doesn't know. They just think it's a funny moment, and it works.
Exactly. And I mean, it's also just like the most human thing like about performing. It's like it's not going to be perfect. That's why you're here. Otherwise, you could be at home watching them do it perfect on your screen. You're here to experience the real live energy it's going to take today in this theater to make this thing happen. So, yeah. It's and I think that's also like why the crossover being in the jazz community and being in musical theater, there's no crossover in those professional industries really. I mean, there's American Songbook, that kind of thing, but like not a lot of professional jazz musicians are going to be exactly like working really actively on Broadway or vice versa. Like it's, every musician is like an individual and does their own thing and has their own path. But for me, like having those skills are essential. If I didn't have the training I had as a jazz musician, I definitely would not be able to make it through a show like this with the expectations that they have from the bass. Just because we're playing 95% of the show.
It's just amazing also to hear how, like, everything that you've experienced kinda has prepared you for your next chapter and has, like, brought you to where you are now, and clearly it's very much impacted your career and just you as a musician and maybe your perspective on yourself and how you play, and I'm wondering, what do you hope audiences take away from the show beyond the laughs, and how has it personally kind of affected your perspective on how you view yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, I think this goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning in telling stories and acknowledging like that something happened and that like an individual experience does have the ability and the capacity to make a global impact. And I think for me, this show is yes, it's phenomenal. We have the best singers in the world. We have the funniest people in the world, but like also like I think for me, my favorite part of the show is the book. And it's the story. They found a way to glue together all these kooky, crazy elements, make it funny, make it dramatic, make it romantic, make it, like just have it embody the entire spectrum of human emotion in 2 hours. And I think like a lot of people don't realize like people don't always go to these shows for the visuals and for the theatrics. Like people want to go hear a story. So to be working on a show that does have like such great production impact and like great sound, great cast, great vocalists, dancers, all the nine, like top tier, blah, 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 blah. But I think what makes it truly unique is the way that they tell this story and the way that you are able to like be flabbergasted, frustrated, sad, happy, all in the same 3 breaths, like because they don't give you I mean, they give you an opportunity to experience it, but they're going to throw something at you, another emotion or another shift at you like in the next moment. So, and I think that's also it's very much so aligned with how people can be feeling in these times. Like oh my goodness, like this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. But at the core of it is like what we'll be able to look back at our like down the line and what our kids and our grandkids will be able to look at as our stories and how we did pivot through all these crazy moves and how we did, you know, sink that ship and we all survived. So, you know, I absolutely think that it is stupid, but it is profoundly representative of life and the times of today. And that is the role of an artist. Okay.
Absolutely, and I think that's where the magic lies, in telling those stories that reflect what's going on in the world and what people can relate to and still have so much heart and still so much hope in it, even when times feel like the opposite. And it's just a reminder that, we're not alone, that there is hope out there, there is still joy, there is still the ability to laugh and like, yeah, embrace the stupid. Embrace it.
Absolutely. We're not stupid enough. Everything is so
No.
serious.
And that brings me to my last two questions, which is where do you find magic in life, both in music and outside of music? And how do you hope to create magic for others?
Oh, I love those questions. How do I find magic in my life? I think I experience the most magic in nature. I am a water sign, I'm a proud Pisces. So anytime I'm by a body of water, things just shift and change for me. And it quite literally feels like I'm under a spell. But also, I retreat to nature anytime I can. Like I'm a big walker. I just like to be outside. I grew up as like one of those kids who did not wear shoes, like a little country girl. And I love the earth. That's also why I study geology. I just I love the earth, and I think that there's so much magic that lies just in a tree, in a leaf, like in organic, living, breathing matter on earth is just so fascinating. Like, don't I should not go down that pigeonhole or that rabbit hole because that opens up like a whole other thing. We were just like on the right side of my brain, and now I'm like slowly shifting to the left side. Like, oh my god, like calculus. Like, let's talk about minerals. Let's do the thing. But no, it really is for me. Like, I love going into nature, and it's very magical for me because it also has its own soundscape. Like, I'm somebody who's also like I like to score films that have already been scored for fun. I'm like, ugh, not satisfied with that. I'll rewrite it myself. And I never feel that way in nature. Like, I love hearing the scores of the earth. And I think that's incredibly magical because it requires so many elements to just exist and to coexist to create energy, life, sound, magic. It's really inexplicable.
Absolutely.
And I think, how do I want to share
Create
music with other
magic for others.
magic, create magic for others? Yeah, I absolutely want to create magic for others in the worlds that I create in my pieces. I spend a lot of time really trying to think about how people will be impacted by certain sounds because it is like we get into the science of things, vibrations, our bodies, organic matter, how it responds to different frequencies and sound waves and that sort of thing. Like, I think about sometimes when I'm writing a piece, like the music on a scientific level in that way to evoke a certain emotion or to try to channel people into a certain space or to try to probe them to consider certain questions that they want to ask themselves about their lives or their perspectives. And it's just constantly giving people the opportunity to be present. So that's the magic like I want to help other people create is like anytime you're engaging like with me as an artist or me as a human being or something that I created or something I was a part of, that you get to be present in it and you get to experience the magic that is the present because it is so fleeting and you will never get to experience the present moment ever again. So yeah.
Absolutely agree. And I think you are succeeding in that by creating magic. I think you're a magic maker and sharing your gift and your talent and just your spirit and your kindness and warmth. And I just want to thank you for being on. You're definitely very magical and part of such a joyous show and doing so many other things. And it's just amazing to hear everything that you've done so far. And I just know you're going to be doing so much more. You're just getting started. So before we end, I normally tell people that are listening to go out there and do some magic, but I would love for you to do the tagline. So just say your name and say everyone out there listening, go out there and do some magic.
Hey everybody, this is Jordyn Davis. Everybody out there listening, go do some magic.
Thanks, Jordan, and go see Titanic through September 20th on Broadway. Bye,
Yes, thank you,
everybody.
Matthew.